Okay, I want you to picture a construction site, but not just any site. I want you to imagine a mega project.
Right, something huge.
We're talking a hydroelectric dam in a remote valley, maybe a massive offshore wind farm, or just a billion-dollar processing plant.
The kind of project with thousands of workers, cranes the size of skyscrapers.
Exactly. It looks like chaos. But here's the question that haunts every single person in a hard hat. When the pressure's on, who actually calls the shots?
Yeah, it is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? And it's almost never the guy with the loudest voice.
Exactly. Is it the owner, the one signing the checks?
Or the massive engineering firm that's supposed to build the thing.
Or is it some third party, sitting in an air-conditioned trailer? Well, today we are going to find out. We're cracking open the operating system for these mega projects.
The FIDI Silver Book, specifically the 2017 edition.
And for anyone who might not know, what exactly is the Silver Book?
It's basically the industry standard for what we call EPC or turnkey projects. It's the playbook you use when you need to hand over a completed facility keys in hand, ready to run.
High risk, high reward.
Absolutely.
And we are going to get laser focused today on just one section of this beast, Clause 3, titled The Employer's Administration. Now, I have to be honest, administration sounds incredibly boring.
It really does. It sounds like filing paperwork.
Right. But you're telling me we should not let that title fool us.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Clause 3 is where the power lives. It defines the employer's representative. This is the person who holds the keys to the kingdom. If you don't understand Clause 3, you don't actually know who's running your project.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to decode this role, unpack their authority, how they delegate it. And this is the part that really blew my mind, the specific, almost weaponized mechanics of silence in this contract.
Silence is absolutely a weapon in the Silver Book.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to wield it, it will be used against you.
Okay, let's start at the top. Clause 3.1. This figure, the employer's representative, who are they?
So under 3.1, the employer, that's the owner of the project, appoints this representative to act on their behalf. And the text is very specific here. It says, this person shall be deemed to act on the employer's behalf under the contract.
So they're like an avatar for the owner. If the representative speaks, it's the same as the owner speaking.
Essentially, yes. The contract grants them full authority. That's the exact phrase used.
Full authority.
Yes. So when the contractor is talking to this representative, legally, there's no, let me check with headquarters. The representative is headquarters, for all intents and purposes.
Okay, full authority sounds a little dangerous. Does that mean they can do absolutely anything? Can they wake up one morning, have a bad coffee, and just terminate the whole contract?
And that is where the contract draws a very hard red line. Clause 3.1 has a specific exception.
Okay.
It says they have full authority except in respect of Clause 15.
And Clause 15 is?
Termination. The nuclear option. So the representative can drive the car, they can steer it, accelerate, slam on the brakes. But they can't drive it off a cliff on purpose.
Only the employer themselves can pull that plug.
Exactly.
That makes sense. You don't want a consultant firing the contractor without the actual owner signing off. Now, I did notice something interesting in the text about who this representative can be. There's this phrase, natural person.
Yes, this is a vital practical detail. I mean, think about it. We deal with corporations all the time. You might hire a huge engineering firm, let's call them Mega-Ang, to be your representative. But FIDI says that's not enough.
So you can't just hide behind a corporate logo.
Precisely. If the representative is a legal entity, like a company, they must name a specific natural person to act on its behalf.
A human being, a name, a face.
Someone who is actually responsible. You can't just say talk to the firm. The contract demands a specific person to be the point of contact. It's all about accountability.
And I assume this person has to be, good at their job.
The contract is surprisingly explicit on that. Clause 3.1 lists the requirements. They must be competent, act as a skilled professional, and this one causes a massive amount of friction on international sites.
What's that?
They must be fluent in the ruling language.
No, I can just see that being a nightmare. Imagine a project in South America, contract is in Spanish, but the firm sends a rep who only speaks English.
It happens constantly. And under the 2017 Silver Book, that is a breach of contract. Communication is the lifeblood of a project, right?
Of course.
If the person with full authority can't read the safety reports because of a language barrier, the project is flying blind.
Okay, so let's say the contractor realizes this representative is a disaster. Or maybe the employer just wants a change. Can they just swap them out overnight?
Not quite. The contract gives protections to the contractor. Clause 3.1 says the employer has to give not less than 14 days notice.
2 weeks warning.
Right. But it's more than just a notification. The contractor has a right to raise a reasonable objection.
Really? So the contractor can actually say, no, not him. We know that guy from a previous job. He's incompetent.
If the objection is reasonable, yes. The text says the employer shall not replace the rep with someone the contractor has reasonably objected to.
So it prevents the employer from appointing, like, a hatchet man just to make life miserable.
Exactly that. Or someone with a clear conflict of interest.
Okay, so we have our representative, but on a billion-dollar project, one person isn't doing everything. They must have a team.
Precisely. And that brings us to Clause 3.2, Other Employers' Personnel. The representative can assign duties and delegate authority to assistants.
These are your inspectors, your resident engineers, the people actually on the site.
Correct, but there are strict limits. The source text mentions 2 big things an assistant cannot do.
And those are?
They generally can't make determinations under Clause 3.5. We'll get to that. And they can't issue a notice to correct under Clause 15.1.
So the assistant can say, this concrete is wet, but they can't say, you're in breach, fix it, or you're fired.
That's a great way to put it. The heavy artillery is reserved for the representative. But, and this is the key part of Clause 3.3, if an assistant gives an instruction within their delegated power, it has the same effect as though the act had been an act of the employer.
So if a junior engineer tells me to dig a trench, legally, the owner just told me to dig that trench.
Yes. And this is where we walk into the silence trap.
The silence trap. Okay, I love how ominous that sounds. Walk me through this, because I think this is where people can lose a lot of money.
Oh, absolutely. So imagine you're the contractor. A junior assistant gives you an instruction. And you think, wait a minute, does this person actually have the authority to tell me this?
Or maybe the instruction just seems completely wrong.
Right. Hey, boss, your assistant just told me to paint the entire turbine hall pink. Did you really mean that?
Right.
So you send a formal notice to the representative asking them to confirm. Now, logic says you wait for a reply, right?
And you wait for an answer.
But Clause 3.3 has a twist. It says, if the employer does not respond within 7 days, the instruction is deemed to be confirmed.
Whoa. So silence means yes.
In this specific context, silence means yes, get on with it.
That is terrifying for a contractor. What if the employer is just lazy or loses the email or goes on vacation for a week?
Too bad. The contractor is stuck doing the work. It puts a huge burden on the employer to pay attention. If you ignore the question, the contract assumes you agree with your team.
It's designed to keep the project moving, I guess.
That's the logic. It prevents the employer from stalling by just not answering.
Okay, so Clause 3.3, silence equals yes. Everyone listening, tattoo that on your brain, because I have a feeling it's about to get complicated.
It is.
Let's move to Clause 3.4, instructions.
This is the bread and butter of the site. The employer issues instructions. Clause 3.4 says they have to be specific.
Can't just wave your hand and say, fix it.
No. You have to state the obligation and the subclause it relates to. You have to cite the rule.
And the contractor just has to obey, right? Jump, and I say how high.
Generally, yes. Immediate compliance is the default. But there are exceptions. The contractor can say no, or at least, hold on, if the instruction is illegal, if it reduces safety, or, this is a big one, if it is technically impossible.
Technically impossible. That's a strong defense. I can't build you a floating castle because, well, physics says no.
Exactly. Now, here is the beautiful contradiction in the FIDIC Silver Book. Remember the silence trap from 3.3?
Where silence meant yes.
Right. Now look at 3.4. If a contractor gets an instruction they think is impossible or unsafe, they send a notice. They say, I can't do this and here's why.
Okay, I can't build the floating castle.
If the employer does not respond within 7 days, in this specific case, the instruction is deemed to be revoked.
So silence means no.
Precisely. Under Clause 3.4, silence means, never mind, forget I asked.
That is a complete 180 from the last clause.
It is.
In 3.3, silence is confirmation. In 3.4, silence is revocation.
And you have to appreciate the logic behind it. In 3.3, it's about confirming authority, so silence defaults to trust your team, keep working.
Okay.
But in 3.4, it's about safety or impossibility. So if the employer is silent, the contract errs on the side of caution.
It assumes the employer doesn't want to force something unsafe.
Exactly. But you can see how dangerous it is if you mix them up.
Oh, absolutely. You could stop work you were supposed to do or do work you were supposed to stop.
And that's why people like me have jobs. Knowing which silence you're dealing with can save a project millions.
Okay, let's move to what might be the most fascinating personality shift in the entire document. Clause 3.5.
The shapeshifter clause.
The shapeshifter clause, I like that. So up until now, the representative has been the boss's voice. They act for the employer, they're on the team.
Correct. They are the agent.
But then a claim arises. The contractor says, you owe me more money. The employer says, no, I don't. They look to the representative to decide. What happens?
This is the wild part. Clause 3.5 explicitly states that when carrying out these duties, the representative shall not be deemed to act for the employer.
They legally stop working for their boss in that moment.
In that specific moment, yes. They have to take off the project manager hat and put on the neutral adjudicator hat. The contract requires them to make a fair determination.
Wow. This person who is paid by the employer, hired by the employer, is suddenly supposed to be totally neutral. Can that actually happen?
It's one of the most debated aspects of FTA contracts.
Yeah.
Can you really bite the hand that feeds you?
Right.
The contract insists you must. The logic is that an obviously biased decision will just get overturned later by an arbitrator anyway, so this is supposed to be the adult in the room moment.
So what's the process? Do they just slam a gavel down?
No. First, they have to consult. They have to encourage discussion to try and reach an agreement. They're a mediator first.
And if they can't agree?
Then the rep makes the determination, and there is a strict clock running. 42 days.
42.
42 days to get an agreement or make a decision.
What if they ghost everyone? We've talked about silence twice. What if the rep just doesn't decide in 42 days?
The consequences are severe. If it's a claim like the contractor asking for money and the rep stays silent, the claim is deemed to be rejected.
Deemed rejected. So silence is a no again.
Yes. And if it's some other matter, it's deemed to be a formal dispute that can go straight to the DAB, the dispute board. Basically, the rep loses their chance to decide. By doing nothing, they force the parties into formal conflict.
This contract really hates hesitation, doesn't it? It punishes you for not making a decision.
Absolutely. Construction is about momentum. Indecision is expensive, so the contract forces a result.
Okay, so let's say the rep does make a decision. They issue their determination. Contractor, you're wrong, you get 0.
Okay.
The contractor is furious. They think it's unfair, that the rep is just a puppet. What can they do? This brings us to 3.5.5, right?
The speak now or forever hold your peace clause. This is the notice of dissatisfaction, the NOD.
I see that acronym, NOD, everywhere in construction disputes. Why is it so important?
It's critical because it closes the door. If a party doesn't like the determination, they have exactly 28 days to send a notice of dissatisfaction.
28 days.
28 days if you send it on day 29.
Too bad.
Too bad. Clause 3.5.5 says if no NOD is given, the determination becomes final and binding.
Final and binding, even if it was completely wrong. Even if the rep made a huge math error.
If you miss that 28-day window, you are stuck with it. It becomes the law of that project. Courts and arbitrators will almost always uphold that because you had your chance to object and you missed it.
That is absolutely brutal. It's like a statute of limitations that runs out in a month.
It has to be. You need certainty to move forward. If
Yeah.
you don't agree, say so now. Otherwise, we move on.
Is there any room for nuance? Or do you have to reject the whole thing?
That's a great question. The text actually mentions severability. If the rep decides 3 things, claim A, claim B, and claim C, and you agree with A and B but hate C, you can issue an NOD for just part C.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. The parts you don't object to become binding and you just fight over the part you disagree with. It isolates the problem.
Okay, before we wrap up, I saw a small section on mistakes. You mentioned math errors. If the rep just makes a typo, writes $100 instead of $100,000, do we really have to risk it becoming final and binding?
Thankfully, no. Clause 3.5.4 allows for the correction of typographical, clerical, or arithmetical errors. It's the common sense clause.
Is there a time limit on that? I feel like there's always a time limit in this book.
You are learning fast. Yes, there is. You have
Yeah.
to catch it within 14 days of the determination.
14 days to catch a typo.
And then the rep has 7 days to issue the correction. Again, speed. No coming back 6 months later saying, oh, by the way, there was a typo.
And finally, clause 3.6, meetings.
Right. The key takeaway from 3.6 is really about the record. The employer must keep the record of the management meetings.
So the employer takes the minutes.
Yes. And, importantly, any responsibilities as assigned in those meetings must be in accordance with the contract.
What does that mean in practice?
It means you can't rewrite the contract in the meeting minutes. If the contract says the contractor bears the risk for bad weather, you can't just write in the minutes, employer agreed to pay for rain delays, and expect that to stick.
The contract is king.
The contract is king. The minutes are a record of discussions, not a tool to amend the legal agreement.
That is a vital protection. People would try to sneak things into minutes all the time.
All the time. Clause 3.6 shuts that down.
Okay, let's zoom out. We've just walked through Clause 3 of the FIDIC Silver Book, and my head is just swimming with numbers. 7 days, 14 days, 28, 42.
It's a clockwork mechanism.
It really is. It paints a picture of a system that is designed to force communication. It does not tolerate silence.
No, it defines silence, and that's the brilliance and the danger of it. In the real world, silence is ambiguous. It could mean I'm thinking or I'm ignoring you.
Right.
In if yike, silence is a defined legal state. Silence is yes in 3.3. Silence is no in 3.4. Silence is rejection in 3.5.
That's the huge takeaway for me. If you're listening to this and you're managing a contract, you can't afford to just ignore an email.
Ignoring a problem is making a decision, whether you realize it or not. And it's usually the wrong one.
And then there's the role of this representative, this strange hybrid. They're the boss's agent, but also a fair judge.
And that is the tension at the heart of the project. It requires a level of professional integrity that is, well, it's hard to maintain when there are millions of dollars on the table.
So here's a thought I want to leave our listeners with today. We talked about Clause 3.5, where the representative has to stop acting for the employer and make a fair determination.
Yes.
Legally, the text is clear, but practically, human nature is the ultimate wild card. Can someone whose salary is paid by the employer truly 100% ignore that fact and rule against them when the stakes are massive?
The contract says they must.
But can they?
That is the question that keeps lawyers and arbitrators in business.
And that is where we will leave it for this deep dive. Thanks for getting into the weeds of the FIDI Silver Book with us.
My pleasure.
Keep those contracts close and watch your deadlines. We'll see you on the next one.
If you're interested in the templates, please visit our shop. The link is in the description.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and see next time.